Good afternoon. My name is Carson Cope, and today I will be discussing with you all my analysis of 3 library case studies. The first 2 case studies take place in an academic library setting, and the third case study takes place in an archival setting. We will begin by examining the case titled Friends or Sexual Harassment. Who decides? The major players in this case are the offenders Ned Parker and Joyce Blaine, and the offended Sandra LaBosse. All are members of Johnsonville State University's Anderson Library staff. Ned Parker is the head of reference, Joyce Blaine is a student employee who is supervised by Ned, and Sandra is a longtime employee of the library. Her position is not explicitly stated. The central issue in this case is that an office romance between 2 JSU library employees, Ned and Joyce, has made another library employee, Sandra, feel uncomfortable. Specifically, Sandra feels sexual harassment may be occurring between a supervisor, Ned, and his employee, Joyce. The narrative suggests there is a miscommunication in the organizational culture of JSU's Anderson Library. Organizational culture refers to a set of values, assumptions, etc. about how things are and should be done and what is important and acceptable at a given organization. Either the offenders are in violation of library policy, written or unwritten, that forbids office romances, or library policy, written or unwritten, does not forbid office romances, and the offended is taking issue towards behavior that is not prohibited. Either way, the problem lies in determining how best to address Sandra's concerns and restore an environment in JSU's Anderson Library where everyone feels comfortable working. The relevant issues in this case are as follows. First, does Anderson Library's organizational culture prohibit office romances involving public displays of affection? Given what is presented in the narrative, it does not appear that the library's organizational culture prohibits office romances, or PDA. This is suggested by the fact that Sandra informed numerous fellow employees in the staff lounge of the behaviors taking place, and none of them are suggested to have responded with concern. Furthermore, if Sandra has witnessed the behaviors, it is likely other employees have witnessed them as well. However, only she appears concerned. Second, how long has Sandra been witness to the office romance and accompanying behaviors? Based upon the narrative, Sandra has only been a witness to the behavior for 1 week's time. This is important to note, as the longer someone is exposed to offending behavior, it can cause them to treat the offenders as villains, which leads to an exaggeration of what has transpired. Third, is the office romance abusive? Ned Parker and Joyce Blaine appear to be 2 grown adults engaged in a consensual relationship. The details provided in the narrative do not suggest this relationship involves abuse or exploitation on the part of Ned towards Joyce. Fourth, does the office romance and accompanying behaviors constitute sexual harassment? The narrative does not say. Fifth, did Sandra speak with her employer to try and resolve the issue? Was the employer made aware of the issue? The narrative suggests that Sandra has not yet reported the conduct to her employer. Sixth, does the law require Sandra to report sexual harassment concerns to her employer before her employer can be held liable for harassment? The narrative does not say. Questions 4 and 6 will require the consultation of outside sources to find answers. To answer whether or not the behavior constitutes illegal activity, it will be necessary to determine what constitutes sexual harassment under the law. This information can be gleaned from the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's website. According to this site, innocuous behaviors can be considered sexual harassment. This is true even if the victim is not the person being sexually harassed. However, the conduct must be of such a character that it would create a work environment that would be intimidating, hostile, or offensive to reasonable people. To answer whether Sandra must report sexual harassment to her employer before her employer can be held liable for the harassment, it will be necessary to consult the U.S. Equal Opportunity Employment Commission's website once more. According to this site, it is necessary for the employer to have been made aware of the sexual harassment and given a chance to make things right for them to be held liable for the harassment. In the first solution, I, the Dean of the Library, will have Sandra address her coworkers Ned and Joyce personally by establishing a mutual purpose and stating her path. I will serve as a consultant for Sandra throughout the process until the problem is resolved. Establishing a mutual purpose refers to making the persons that you're talking with believe you're working toward a common outcome in the conversation, that you care about their goals, interests, and values. Stating your path refers to addressing someone's behaviors, actions, etc. by relating to them the facts of what's going on, telling them what you are beginning to conclude from what is going on, and letting them have an opportunity to give their side of the story. It avoids making threats and accusations. To establish a mutual purpose, Sandra will address her coworkers, highlighting that she needs to talk to them about an issue that's getting in the way of them working together. If it were resolved, they could be better teammates and create a library environment that helps everyone work comfortably. To state her path, she will relay the facts of Ned and Joyce's behavior that are bothering her, explain what these facts are leading her to conclude, and encourage Ned and Joyce to share their facts and stories. In short, Sandra will highlight the aspects of their behavior that are troubling her, such as physical touching, explain to them that this touching is leading her to wonder if sexual harassment is taking place, and allow Ned and Joyce to explain the nature of their relationship. Through dialogue, an understanding can hopefully be reached that satisfies both parties. For example, this might take the form of Ned and Joyce abstaining from physical contact while in the workplace, or even recognizing the potential issues that come with their relationship and foregoing it altogether. The justification for this solution rests in the fact that when a fellow employer's behavior makes one uncomfortable, the best place to start to resolve the issue is by talking it out. Furthermore, the ALA recommends this as a viable solution to deal with sexual harassment concerns. According to the ALA, you should tell the harasser that you object to this behavior and describe the specific things which offend or upset you. Real-life examples suggest that confronting the harasser can be very successful as well. For example, scholarly literature highlights that a New Jersey woman confronted a man who harassed her daily at her sports practice, and the behavior stopped immediately. Sometimes all that is needed is to address the harasser personally. This is the most recommended solution to the problem, as it resolves the problem effectively and quietly to the liking of both parties. Each party can express their side of the story until an understanding is reached. Furthermore, the problem is resolved without incurring any significant costs in time or money to the university. In the second solution, I, the Dean of the Library, will move to change JSU Anderson Library's organizational culture in such a way that it prohibits employees from expressing physical intimacy with their love interest while in the workplace. This can include prohibitions against kissing, groping, fondling, and anything a reasonable person would interpret as having sexual connotations. The library would enact an anti-fraternization policy. In addition, the library will enact a rule against employees dating one another if one employee is in a position of authority over the other. The justification for this solution rests in the fact that, when informal means of addressing sexual harassment concerns do not bring about desired results, the next best solution is to enact a policy change. This puts pressure on people to change their behavior due to the fact that the policy will have the backing of the library and university authorities. Furthermore, experts generally agree that a policy regulating workplace romances is necessary to prevent sexual harassment. This solution is recommended as the second best option to resolve the problem. However, it should only be pursued if a conversation between Sandra, Ned, and Joyce does not resolve the matter. While such a policy could successfully bring an end to the problematic behaviors, it could also create resentment amongst many employees towards the library, who may feel they are meddling too deeply in their employees' personal affairs. For example, Ned and Joyce might opt to resign as opposed to giving up their romantic relationship. Furthermore, the narrative suggests that the organizational culture of JSU as a whole does not prohibit office romances. Since academic libraries operate under the policies of their university, an effort to change JSU Anderson's library policy would require a change in the university's policy, which could take a significant amount of time. In the third solution, I, the Dean of the Library, will advise Sandra to file a complaint with Human Resources. She can relay to HR the facts of what is going on between Ned and Joyce, and let them know that it is creating a work environment that makes her feel uncomfortable. HR can take the appropriate measures as prescribed by the university to correct the problem. The justification for this solution rests in the fact that if someone feels another's behaviors are over the line, they should contact HR to investigate. This is the third most desirable solution, as it will deter the chance of a legal suit being brought against the university rooted in their failure to address Sandra's concerns. Sexual harassment claims in libraries can and have led to sexual harassment lawsuits, so it is important that they be taken seriously. It is recommended that this option be chosen only if the behavior cannot be corrected by Sandra having a conversation with Ned and Joyce, or the library bringing an end to the romance through policy changes. An internal investigation could cost the university a substantial amount of time and money. For example, an internal investigation into sexual harassment at the University of Rochester cost the university $4.5 million. In addition, the narrative suggests that the organizational culture of JSU as a whole does not prohibit office romances, so nothing may come from this investigation. Of the three solutions presented, the course of action to be taken is offered in the first solution. First, Sandra will be advised to approach Ned and Joyce at an opportune time, preferably in private, to address with them the offending behavior that is bothering her. She will start by establishing a mutual purpose with Ned and Joyce. This means that Sandra will need to begin by addressing Ned and Joyce in such a way that it is evident that they are working toward a common outcome in the conversation and that she cares about their goals, interests, and values. This can take the following form. I'd like to talk about something that's getting in the way of my working with you. It's a tough issue to bring up, but I think it'll help us be better teammates if I do. Is that okay? Second, Sandra will be advised to state her path. She will start by sharing her observations. Instead of being accusatory and asserting that she feels Ned is sexually harassing Joyce, she will state that, when you are working together, I notice that you sometimes hold hands and touch each other. This approach will be more persuasive and avoid the defensiveness that arises from more accusatory remarks. Third, Sandra will be advised to tell her story. In short, she will explain what she is beginning to conclude from her observations. In this case, her conclusion is that Ned may be sexually harassing Joyce. The statement of Sandra's conclusion should take the following form. I don't know that you're aware you're doing these things, so I thought I would bring them up because they send a message that makes me uncomfortable. How do you see it? It is important at this point to avoid inflammatory conclusions and not pile on multiple negative conclusions. This will create defensiveness in Ned and Joyce. Finally, Sandra will be advised to ask for Ned and Joy's paths, giving them a chance to respond with their facts and stories. It is important that Sandra carefully listen to what they have to say and to be willing to change her story as new information is presented to her. By allowing others to speak, a dialogue can emerge that leads to Ned and Joyce agreeing to forego their behaviors that are upsetting Sandra. It is even possible that Sandra may find her belief that Ned is sexually harassing Joyce to be mistaken. For example, through dialogue, she may find it as a consensual relationship and her concerns are alleviated. The solution selected to resolve this problem is to have Sandra speak with Ned and Joyce to express her concerns about their behavior. She will do so by establishing a mutual purpose with her coworkers, and then she will state her path. This solution requires Sandra to share her observations about their behavior, explain what she has begun to conclude from their behavior, and give Ned and Joyce an opportunity to respond with their side of the story. Sandra also needs to avoid being accusatory and painting her coworkers as villains. Following this approach, being respectful, and keeping this exchange private has a high likelihood of resolving the problematic behaviors. The reason for selecting this solution is that it is the most appropriate response to this case and will produce little to no cost to the library or university. Literature suggests that talking out disputes concerning sexual misconduct can often bring an end to the problematic behaviors. Furthermore, the second solution would cost the university a significant amount of time and money to create and implement a policy regulating workplace romances. While such a policy could be effective, it may be difficult to implement such changes in light of the library operating under the purview of the university and their policies concerning workplace romances. Such a policy could also lead employees to quit their jobs in protest of the restrictions. Finally, the third solution would cost the university a significant amount of time and money as well. Moreover, the details of the case suggest that the organizational culture of JSU as a whole does not prohibit office romances, so nothing may come from this investigation. The advantages of the solution are as follows. If successful, talking out this problem has the advantage of resolving the matter quietly and to both parties' liking. Second, this solution avoids any time, financial, or reputational cost to the university that could arise from conducting an internal harassment investigation. The disadvantages to this solution are as follows. First, the solution lacks the backing of any official university or library policy, so there will be less pressure on Ned and Joyce to correct their behavior. It relies solely on the strength of the rhetorical tactics Sandra employs. Furthermore, this solution requires a great deal of tact and poise on the part of Sandra. She must choose her words carefully. This could be difficult, giving her penchant to be overcome with emotion and jump quickly to conclusions as suggested by the narrative. Sandra must not allow her emotions to control her, nor should she try to hide them or suppress them. The primary goal of the decision is to resolve this issue quickly and quietly to the liking of both parties, and to restore an environment at Anderson Library where everyone feels comfortable working. It is of utmost importance that all employees feel safe while on the job. The second goal of the solution is to resolve the problem without bringing any significant financial, time, and reputational cost to the university that would come with sexual harassment investigations. While this is sometimes unavoidable when clearly illegal behaviors take place, such as physical assault, in this case the problematic behaviors are mild enough that they can be resolved quietly. The effectiveness of this solution will be measured by seeing that the offending behaviors have been fully halted within 1 month's time and that they have not reappeared by 6 months' time. This gives Ned and Joyce enough time to correct their behaviors while also making sure they do not revert back to the problematic behaviors once the controversy dies down. It is important that I record who will do what and by when after the exchange ends. If not, the whole interaction may be wasted. Recording the commitments and following up with Sandra will be necessary to ensure Ned and Joyce remain accountable. If Sandra reports to me that the behaviors have not stopped in the given time frame, further action can be taken as needed. The following 3 slides contain the references that were consulted to analyze this case study. They are arranged in alphabetical order. The second case under examination is titled Care, but Not Too Much. The major players in this case are the offender Fran Sweet and the offended Rose Bauer. Both are members of Bartlett Community College's library staff. Fran works in the library's administrative offices, and Rose works in the library's reference department. The central issue in this case is that Fran Sweet, one of 2 colleagues who volunteered to work as a team to develop an online tutorial for Bartlett County Community College Library's new website, has taken credit for her colleague Rose Bauer's work. Specifically, Fran structured an email to the BCC Library Committee making it appear she had done her part of the project as well as Rose's part. The narrative suggests that there is a significant issue with openness and honesty on the part of these 2 colleagues. According to Evans and Lear, one of the most important rules to ensure team success is to be open and honest with one another, even though it can lead to vulnerability. In this case, Fran is not being honest by taking credit for Rose's work. In contrast, Rose is not being open with Fran about her displeasure with Fran taking credit for her work. Instead, she is avoiding Fran and letting the issue go unaddressed. The problem lies in determining how best to alert Fran to correct her wrongdoing so that Rose can receive proper credit for her work contributions to the team. The relevant issues in this case are as follows. First, how long and how often has Fran been taking credit for Rose's work? The narrative suggests that Fran has been engaged in this behavior for 2 years, and in that time this behavior has happened twice. Second, is Fran intentionally seeking to take credit for Rose's work? The narrative suggests that it may be an idiosyncrasy on the part of Fran. However, it is not clear from this whether Fran is intentionally or unintentionally seeking to take credit for Rose's work as her own. The fact it has occurred twice does suggest a possible pattern, though. Third, is Fran taking credit for ideas that have not been clearly articulated and written down? The narrative suggests that Rose is taking credit for a tutorial outline, as well as a detailed list of all the activities associated with the tutorial, as well as who they were assigned to and when they need to be completed. Both were created and drafted up by Rose. Fourth, does taking credit for the outline and detailed list created by Rose amount to plagiarism? The narrative does not provide insight into this matter. Fifth, is Rose angered by Fran passing off her work as her own? The narrative suggests that Rose is very angry about this. It highlights that Rose was furious when reading Fran's message to the library committee, taking credit for her work. She is so angered by Fran's actions that she wants to avoid Fran. To answer whether Fran taking credit for Rose's work via email amounts to plagiarism, it will be necessary to consult scholarly literature on the matter. According to scholarly literature, the answer is possibly. According to Denise Netterhouse, plagiarism can occur in many forms, including submitting as one's own work a report, examination paper, computer file, lab report, or other assignment that has been prepared by someone else. Given this definition, Fran's actions could potentially be construed as plagiarism. However, this is heavily debatable as Fran did not technically submit Rose's work. She merely structured an email that suggested she had done Rose's part. It is not clear that this incident meets the definition of plagiarism, though it could. In the first solution, I, the library director, will advise Rose to speak with Fran to resolve the problem. I will serve as a consultant for Rose throughout the process until the problem is resolved. In this scenario, Rose will establish a mutual purpose with Fran and state her path to Fran. First, she will highlight that there is something that is bothering her about Fran's behavior and stress that if this aspect of her behavior were addressed, they could better serve the committee they are both a part of. Here, Rose establishes her mutual purpose with Fran. Next, Rose will state her path to Fran. She will relay to Fran the facts of her behavior that are bothering her, explain what these facts are leading her to conclude, and encourage Fran to share her facts and stories. Here, Rose will highlight that Fran is taking credit for her work via email, explain that it is starting to look like she is plagiarizing Rose's work, then ask Fran to share her side of the story and explain her actions. Ideally, making use of these rhetorical tactics will generate a dialogue that leads to Fran acknowledging her mistake, letting the committee know Rose did her part, and agreeing not to take credit for Rose's work in the future. The justification for this solution rests in the fact that Rose may be misinterpreting Fran's actions. It is entirely plausible that Fran is unaware she structured the email to the committee, making it appear Rose had not done any work. For example, emails are often constructed hastily, which leaves open the possibility that Fran was just being careless in her writing. Before resorting to extreme measures, such as alleging academic misconduct, it is important for Rose to pose her concerns to Fran as questions. According to Gonzalez, when we charge people with things, we do so without all the facts. According to Patterson, Rose needs to invite opposing viewpoints because she needs to hear Fran's facts and stories to get a complete picture of what is going on. Doing this may find that the problem is rooted in simple carelessness that is corrected by Fran being more vigilant in the future. This is the most recommended solution as the problem is resolved effectively and quietly to the liking of both parties. Each party can express their side of the story until an understanding is reached. Furthermore, the problem is resolved without incurring any costs in time or money to the university. The second solution is to have myself as the library director address Fran. In this scenario, I would utilize the same tactics that I advised Rose to use. I would start by establishing a mutual purpose with Fran. This could take the following form. I want what's best for the employees of this library, including you. This is why I need to talk with you about an issue that has been brought to my attention regarding your behavior. Here I establish a mutual purpose with Fran that suggests I care about Fran and value her as an employee. I will then state my path to Fran. I will relay the facts of Fran's behavior that Rose alerted me to. I will explain what these facts are leading myself and her to conclude, and I will encourage Fran to share her side of the story. In doing this, I will give Fran a chance to come clean, and may find that Fran was not even aware that she was taking credit for Rose's work. It may truly be an idiosyncrasy, as the narrative suggests. Either way, I will give Fran a warning to not commit the offending behavior again. I will then alert her to the fact that if it happens again, more serious actions may regrettably have to be taken. The justification for this solution is the same as the first solution. Before resorting to extreme measures such as alleging academic misconduct, it is important for me to pose my concerns to Fran as questions. According to Gonzalez, often we charge people with things, we do so without all the facts. I need to invite opposing viewpoints because I need to hear Fran's facts and stories to get a complete picture of what is going on. Doing this may find that the problem is rooted in simple carelessness that is corrected by Fran being more vigilant in the future. While it is very similar to the first solution, this solution is less desirable. On the one hand, having the authority of myself as the manager address Fran may put greater pressure on her to correct her behavior. However, it is equally possible that Fran may come to resent the fact that Rose tattled on her to the manager. This could lead to friction between the two employees, even if the problem is resolved. As such, the two employees should be given a chance to work out the issue in private first. While managers sometimes need to deal with the problems, it is often better for employees to hold each other accountable when they have problems. As such, this is recommended as the second best solution to solve this problem. The third solution is to make plagiarism allegations against Fran to the proper university authorities. In this scenario, the details of what has transpired between Rose and Fran can be investigated to see what disciplinary action needs to be taken. Important details that will be examined are the intent of Fran's actions, the frequency of Fran's actions, and the degree of plagiarism that has occurred. Having the authority of the university condemn Fran's actions will put significant pressure on her to correct her behavior, even if it only amounts to a verbal or written warning not to repeat the offending behavior. The justification for this solution is that people have a right to their intellectual property, no matter how great or small. According to Fox and Beale, it is unethical to take credit for another person's work. In the university setting, plagiarism is widely thought of as perhaps the most grievous academic crime. While it is important to take instances of plagiarism seriously, this is the least desirable solution to address the problem between Rose and Fran. Having the university conduct an investigation of Fran's actions will cost the university heavily in both time and money, and there is no guarantee that anything will come of an investigation. In terms of time cost to the university, according to Fox and Beal, if allegations of plagiarism involve a college or university employee, investigations may take more than a year. In terms of financial costs, according to Fox and Beal, the cost of investigating allegations of plagiarism costs on average anywhere from $100,000 to $2 million. Furthermore, if Fran's conduct is not found to warrant significant disciplinary action, or if no wrongdoing is found, her professional reputation could suffer considerable damage, prompting her to leave and the library to lose a valuable employee. According to Fox and Beal, it is important that plagiarism allegations are true and justifiable before making them. Given these facts, this solution is recommended as a last resort to solve this problem. Of the three solutions presented, the course of action to be taken is offered in the first solution. First, I will advise Rose to address the pattern of behavior that is being exhibited by Fran, rather than this individual incident of her taking credit for Rose's work. In this case, the pattern of behavior is one of dishonesty. Fran is taking credit for Rose's work twice in 2 years. According to Patterson, it is important for Rose to focus on the pattern of behavior rather than the latest instance of it, as people often become more emotional than the issue they're discussing warrants because they are talking about the wrong issue. If you are really bothered by a pattern but are talking about the latest instance, your emotions will seem out of proportion. Rose is clearly angered by this second instance of Fran's dishonesty, but if she is not focused on the overall pattern of dishonesty, she will miss the mark in this conversation. Second, I would advise Rose not to treat Fran as a villain and recognize that she, Rose, is not completely innocent in this situation. According to Patterson, all stories of victimhood are not black and white, as often we play a part in creating problems for ourselves. As such, it will be important to emphasize to Rose that while it is wrong for Fran to have taken credit for her work, she played a role in this second instance by not addressing her the first time she did it. Had she addressed her previously, the current issue might not exist. It is important for Rose to recognize this before engaging in dialogue, as it will help her to not attribute the worst possible intentions to Fran. Perhaps it is just an idiosyncrasy on Fran's part. Rose must address Fran as a complex person rather than a villain. Third, once Rose is in the right frame of mind concerning the situation, she will approach Fran in private to address with her the offending behavior that is bothering her. She will start by establishing a mutual purpose with Fran. Rose will need to begin by addressing Fran in such a way that it is evident they are working toward a common outcome in the conversation, and that she cares about her goals, interests, and values. This could take the following form. I'd like to talk about something that's getting in the way of my working with you. It's a tough issue to bring up, but I think it will help us be better teammates if I do. Is that okay? Fourth, Rose will be advised to state her path to Fran. Simply put, she will highlight the fact that Fran structured an email so that it looked like she did Rose as part of the project. Here, Rose could point to the text of the email as evidence of this fact. Fifth, Rose will be advised to tell her story. In short, she will explain what she's beginning to conclude from her observations. In this case, her conclusion is that Fran is trying to take credit for her work. The statement of Rose's conclusion should take the following form. I don't know that you're aware you're doing this, so I thought I would bring it up, because it's starting to look like you are trying to take credit for my work. How do you see it? It's important at this point to avoid inflammatory conclusions and not pile on multiple negative conclusions. This could create defensiveness in Fran. Finally, Rose will ask for Fran's path and give her a chance to respond with her facts and stories. It is important that Rose carefully listens to what she has to say and be willing to change her story as new information is presented to her. By allowing Fran to speak, a dialogue can emerge that leads Fran to acknowledge her wrongdoing, let the committee know Rose did her part, and be vigilant to not take credit for Rose's work in the future. The solution selected to solve this problem is to have Rose speak with Fran to express her concerns about Fran taking credit for her work. I would advise Rose to not paint Fran as a villain and to acknowledge her role in what has transpired between her and Fran. Furthermore, I will advise her to focus on the overall pattern of dishonesty that characterizes Fran's actions, rather than focus on this one incident that Rose is angry about. Once Rose is in the right frame of mind, she will establish a mutual purpose with Fran and state her path to Fran. The reasons for this decision are as follows. First, it is the most appropriate response to this case and comes at no cost to the Library of University. Furthermore, before resorting to extreme measures such as alleging academic misconduct, it is important for Rose to pose her concerns to Fran as questions. As often when we charge people with things, we do so without all the facts. Rose needs to invite opposing viewpoints because she needs to hear Fran's facts and stories to get a complete picture of what is going on. Second, the second proposed solution could foster resentment between Rose and Fran, as Fran may come to resent Rose for tattling on her to the manager. It is better for employees to hold each other accountable than for managers to take on this responsibility. Finally, the third proposed solution would cost the university a significant amount of time and money if it were to conduct an investigation into plagiarism allegations. As noted, the typical university investigation into plagiarism allegations costs anywhere from $100,000 to $2 million. Furthermore, an investigation can seriously damage Fran's professional reputation, even if nothing comes from the investigation. Overall, it is better to give Fran a chance to correct her behavior before taking more serious actions. The advantages to this solution are as follows. First, if successful, this solution will resolve the problem quickly and quietly to the liking of both parties. Second, if successful, this solution avoids bringing any time, financial, or reputational costs to the university that could come with an investigation into plagiarism and academic misconduct. Third, if successful, this solution avoids bringing any harm to Fran's reputation that could come with investigations into plagiarism and academic misconduct. The disadvantages of the solution are as follows. First, this solution lacks the backing of the university or library policy, so there will be less pressure on Fran to correct her behavior. Second, Rose must have control of her emotions for this solution to work. Rose is very angry with Fran, which can make dialogue difficult. She must work hard to control her emotions so she doesn't derail the conversation and tell a story that paints Fran as a villain. The primary goal of this solution is to resolve this issue quickly and quietly to the liking of both parties and ensure that Rose receives the proper credit she deserves for her work contributions to team projects. It is important that Fran understands it is wrong to take credit for another person's work as well. The second goal of this solution is to avoid any costly investigations into plagiarism by the university that could hurt the university in terms of time, money, and reputation. It is ideal that the university does not suffer financial and reputational damages over what may be an unintentional mishap on Fran's part. The third goal of this solution is to avoid any reputational costs to Fran that could come with allegations of plagiarism. It is ideal that the university does not inflict irreparable damage to Fran's reputation over what may be an unintentional mishap on her part. The effectiveness of this solution will be measured in three ways. First, it will be measured by seeing that Fran apologizes to Rose and informs the committee that Rose did her part of the project. Second, it will be measured by seeing that Fran does not take credit for any of Rose's work during the rest of the project they are currently working on. Third, it will be measured by seeing that Fran does not take credit for Rose's work at any point during the next project they are working on, following the current project. According to Patterson, it is important that I record who will do what and by when after the exchange ends. If not, the whole interaction may be wasted. Recording the commitments and following up with Rose will be necessary to ensure that Fran remains accountable. If Rose reports that Fran has continued to take credit for Rose's work, further action can be taken. The following three slides contain the references that were consulted to analyze this case study. They are listed in alphabetical order. The third case study under examination is titled, Is It Just a Little White Lie? The major players in this case are the offenders Vera Masaova, Carla Soy, and Courtney. The offended is Lisa Berg. Vera Masaova is the legal specialist for Bartlett County Museum Archives. Carla Soy is an archivist at BCMA. Courtney is the director of BCMA. And Elisa Berg is a librarian at BCMA. The central issue in this case is that two BCMA staff members, Vera and Carla, have pressured BCMA's director, Courtney, to adopt protocols governing patrons' access to their holdings on Native Americans. These protocols require BCMA to restrict and even remove materials that local Native American tribes may find offensive. Vera and Carla are very passionate supporters of these guidelines, which has led them to go behind the backs of other librarians to have them implemented. Carla's commitment to the protocols is so great that she has even lied to a patron about having a resource at BCMA to uphold the protocols. Ultimately, they have successfully pressured Courtney to accept the protocols. Librarian Elisa Berg believes that these protocols are unethical and go against the professional values that librarians are tasked to uphold. These values include honesty and intellectual freedom. The problem lies in determining the best course of action Elisa can take to restore an ethical environment at BCMA that is committed to upholding the professional values of honesty and intellectual freedom that librarians are supposed to embody. The relevant issues in this case are as follows. First, do Vera and Carla respect Elisa as a fellow employee? The narrative suggests that they do not have a strong respect for Elisa. This is evidenced by the fact that they do not care about Elisa's opinion concerning the protocols and are willing to go behind her back to have them implemented. Second, are other librarians at BCMA concerned about the protocols in the same way Elisa is? The narrative suggests that they are. Elisa mentions in a conversation to Carla that all the librarians had expressed concerns surrounding the protocols and the removal of works from the library's collection. Third, does Elisa have a strong relationship with Courtney? The narrative suggests that she does not. It is suggested that Elisa is new at the library and that Courtney barely knows her. Fourth, does lying to a patron about BCMA's holding violate a librarian's code of ethics? The narrative does not explicitly say. Fifth, does restricting access and removing works from a collection because they might offend someone violate a librarian's code of ethics? The narrative does not explicitly say. Questions 4 and 5 require the consultation of outside sources to acquire answers. Does lying to a patron about BCMA's holdings violate a librarian's code of ethics? The answer is yes. According to Evans and Allier, white lies are like gateway drugs to bigger offenses. It is not a risk you should be willing to take. Typically, white lies are rooted in avoidance, and while not all avoidance is unethical, it typically does fall into the realm of being unethical. Does restricting access and removing works from a collection because they might offend certain patrons violate a librarian's code of ethics? The answer is yes. According to Evans and Allier, the American Library Association's Bill of Rights states that materials should not be removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. In the first solution, I will advise Elisa to speak with Courtney to express her concerns about the protocols. In this scenario, Elisa will establish a mutual purpose with Courtney and state her path to Courtney. First, Elisa will highlight that she knows both her and Courtney want what's best for BCMA and that they both want to embody the ethical codes that librarians agree to follow to the best of their ability. In light of these facts, she needs to talk to Courtney about the protocols concerning their Native American holdings that she has recently agreed to implement. Here, Elisa establishes her mutual purpose with Courtney. Next, Elisa will state her path to Courtney. She will relay to Courtney the facts of her actions that are concerning her, explain what these facts are leading her to conclude, and encourage Courtney to share her facts and stories. Here, Elisa will highlight that the protocols Courtney has decided to implement have led an employee to behave unethically and lie to her patrons about not having a book in their collection. Furthermore, she will highlight that the protocols require BCMA to restrict access to materials and or have materials removed because they offend Native American tribes. She will then suggest that it is starting to look like they are in violation of the ALA's Bill of Rights, which they are supposed to adhere to as library professionals. After stating all this, she will ask Courtney to express her side of the story. Ideally, utilizing these rhetorical tactics will pave the way for a dialogue between Elisa and Courtney that causes Courtney to recognize the issues with her decision to implement the protocols and to forego their implementation until the ethical issues are worked out. Justification for this solution rests in the fact that Courtney may be the easiest person to talk to and persuade to change her position on the protocols. Courtney was pressured by Vera and Carla to accept the protocols and took a week to decide on the matter. This suggests she may still have reservations about them and be open to hearing Elisa's concerns. Furthermore, as the library director, she has the final say over whether or not the protocols are implemented. As such, it is imperative that Elisa talk to her to express her concerns. This is the most recommended solution. Elisa needs to consult with Courtney immediately since she has the final say over whether or not to implement the protocols. Furthermore, the problem is resolved without incurring any significant cost to BCMA. At most, a small amount of time and money will need to be spent discussing, reassessing, and modifying the protocols before their implementation. In the second solution, I will advise Elisa to address Vera and Carla in private to persuade them to adopt her position on the protocol guidelines, namely that they go against the professional values of honesty and intellectual freedom that librarians are supposed to embody. She will utilize the same rhetorical tactics that are used in the first solution offered to resolve this case. These tactics include establishing a mutual purpose and stating your path. First, Elisa will highlight that she knows her, Vera, and Carla all want what's best for BCMA, and that they all want to embody the ethical codes that librarians agree to follow to the best of their ability. In light of these facts, she needs to talk with them about the protocols concerning their Native American holdings that they have pushed for BCMA to adopt. Here, Elisa establishes her mutual purpose with Vera and Carla. Next, Elisa will state her path. Here, Elisa will highlight that the protocols they have pushed to implement have led them all, including herself, to consider lying to a patron about not having a book in their collection. Furthermore, she will highlight that the protocols require BCMA to restrict access to materials and or have materials removed because they offend Native American tribes. She will then suggest that it is starting to look like they are turning their backs on the LA's Bill of Rights, which they are supposed to adhere to as library professionals. After stating all this, she will ask them to express their side of the story. Ideally, utilizing these rhetorical tactics will pave the way for a dialogue between Elisa, Vera, and Carla that causes the two women to recognize the issues with implementing the protocols and to forego their support of them until ethical issues are worked out. If Elisa is successful in persuading the two women to adopt her position on the protocols. The three women will then privately meet with Courtney to express their concerns over the protocols. They will adopt the rhetorical tactics presented in the first solution to persuade Courtney to forego the implementation of the protocols until the ethical issues are worked out with them. The justification for this solution rests in the fact that when a team member sees another team member violating the organization's code of conduct, it is on them to take the initiative to address their team members' problematic behaviors. Furthermore, Vera and Carla have strong influence over Courtney, as evidenced by the fact that they were able to pressure her to implement the protocols. It would be of great value to Elisa to have them backing her in the conversation with Courtney, especially since Courtney and Elisa barely know each other. This option is recommended as the second best solution. Like the first solution, the problem is resolved without incurring any significant cost to BCMA. At most, a small amount of time and money will need to be spent discussing, reassessing, and modifying the protocols before their implementation. However, it will be difficult for Elisa to persuade Vera and Carla to adopt her views on the protocols. As the narrative suggests, they do not have a strong respect for Elisa or her opinions on the matter. In the third solution, I will advise Elisa to impose a sanction on Courtney until she agrees to resolve the ethical issues with the protocols, namely that they go against the professional values librarians are tasked to uphold, including honesty and intellectual freedom. Elisa will send out emails to all the librarians who are also concerned about the ethical issues with the protocols and ask them to join her in refusing to abide by the protocols until these ethical issues are worked out. The justification for the solution rests in the fact that power is reciprocal. Staff can impose sanctions on managers when they feel that managers are abusing their power. In this case, the argument could be made that Courtney is abusing her power by taking the protocols into her own hands and going behind the backs of other librarians to implement them without addressing their concerns or informing them that they are being implemented. This solution is recommended as a last resort. It is very dangerous for Elisa to challenge the boss in such a way, and if unsuccessful, it could prompt Courtney to find reason to fire Elisa from her position. Even if she is not fired, challenging the boss in such a way will likely lead to strained relationships with her coworkers that would prompt Elisa to leave. Furthermore, it will be very hard to get enough librarians on board to support such a sanction, as they may fear getting fired or destroying relationships with their coworkers as well. As such, this solution is recommended as a last resort. Of the three solutions presented, the course of action to be taken is offered in the first solution. First, Elisa will establish a mutual purpose with Courtney. This will take the form of stressing that they both want what is best for BCMA, and considering this fact, she needs to discuss with her the protocol she has decided to implement concerning Native American holdings. Second, Elisa will state her path to Courtney. She will highlight the fact that the protocols she has agreed to implement have led employees to behave unethically by lying to patrons. She will also point out that restricting access to library resources is encouraged by the protocols, which violates BCMA's commitment to uphold intellectual freedom. Third, Elisa will tell her story to Courtney. Given the aforementioned facts, she will stress that it is starting to look like BCMA is turning its back on the AL Bill of Rights and its tenets such as intellectual freedom. Fourth, Elisa will give Courtney an opportunity to share her side of the story. Ideally, these rhetorical tactics will open up a dialogue that leads Courtney to acknowledge the issues with her decision to implement the protocols and to forego their implementation until the ethical issues are worked out. The solution selected to resolve this problem is to have Elisa address Courtney in private to talk out her concerns with the protocols. She will establish a mutual purpose with Courtney, state her path to Courtney, tell her story to Courtney, and allow Courtney to share her side of the story. The reason for selecting this solution is that it produces no significant cost to BCMA. In addition, the second proposed solution will be hard to pull off. Vera and Carla are very committed to supporting the protocols, and they lack respect for Elisa. This will make it exceedingly difficult for Elisa to persuade them to see the issues with the protocols. Finally, the third proposed solution will cost BMA substantially in time and money, as it will disrupt the organization's workflow. It is a very dangerous course of action for Elisa to take, as she could easily anger Courtney and find herself out of a job. The advantages to this solution are as follows. First, if successful, the problem is resolved without incurring any significant cost to BCMA. At most, a small amount of time and money will need to be spent discussing, reassessing, and modifying the protocols before their implementation. Second, if successful, the problem is resolved without jeopardizing Elisa's relationship with Courtney or threatening her job. Third, if successful, Elisa may be able to prove her worth at BCMA as a valuable team member and gain the respect of her coworkers Vera and Carla, as well as BCMA's director Courtney. The disadvantages to this solution are as follows. First, Elisa will have to confront Courtney by herself without the support of her coworkers and fellow librarians. Second, Courtney barely knows Elisa, which may make it difficult for Lisa to persuade her to reconsider the protocols. In her words, she may be seen as bucking the boss. The central goal of this solution is to restore an environment at BCMA that reflects the ethical values of honesty and intellectual freedom that libraries are supposed to embody. The second goal of the solution is to avoid bringing any significant cost to the university in time or money that will come with the third recommended solution. The third goal of this solution is to maintain professionalism for Elisa by having her address Courtney persuasively but respectfully. The effectiveness of this solution will be measured by seeing that Courtney acknowledges the ethical issues that arise from implementing the protocols and agrees to temporarily forgo their implementation until the issues are resolved. The issues that need to be resolved are the fact that the protocols encourage BCMA staff to lie to patrons about held resources and to work in opposition to intellectual freedom, a pillar of the ALA Bill of Rights. Second, the effectiveness of the solution will be measured by seeing that Courtney calls a meeting of BCMA staff so all the librarians can express their concerns over the protocols and have input in working out the ethical issues with the protocols. The following 2 slides contain the references consulted to analyze this case study. Thank you for taking the time to review my presentation. Please have a blessed day.